This is the Average to Savage podcast with Paul Guarino. Everyone and anyone, athletes, celebs, and much more.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Average Savage podcast. Our special guest today is Cyrus Tidwell. Cyrus, how's it going?
Hey, man, thanks for having me here. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just start out. How'd you get involved in boxing?
Sure. So I started out just as, a participant and fan of the sport. I think it's really cathartic and great. And just learning how to do it just gave me a lot of interest in, watching it more. I remember when I went to my first amateur and professional fight, I was just shocked just by how different it was than when you're watching it on TV. It's one thing to see it in a video game or see it on TV. It's another thing to go to a fight with someone that you know and that you trained with and then see them go and whip ass. It's a special and cool thing. So, for me, that joy and love that I had for the sport and watching it live was something that I wanted to bring to other people too, because it's special and it's different and it's visceral.
Yeah, no, definitely. And your promotion is called Victory Boxing League.
Correct, yeah.
And what made you call it like a league instead of promotion?
Sure. So it's semantics. You talk about you basically place and talk about your promotion or your league the way you want it to be thought of. So for me, being able to have a self-contained promotion or league that makes it easy for people to get a lot of fights and go and challenge other people that are also within that promotion or league. That's really what the focus was and the idea behind it. You go and look at something like the UFC or One Championship or a lot of these other major fighting leagues out there. There are people that, defend their title or defend their belt. If you look at Victory 3, for example, we handed out 3 belts. One at someone for 147, one at 168, and then one at 126. So the idea is that we want to have people continually fight on the same cards over time and continue to grow their profile and have people go and challenge them and to take on new and exciting matchups. So that was really the whole idea of calling it a league. The goal is for it to grow into that level of promotion in the future.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's different too. And then, I guess from the business perspective, how did you start? Where you started in management or marketing or anything like that, and then you got
Sure. So I actually own a boxing gym over in Dallas, Texas. It's at North Dallas in a city called Farmers Branch. It's called Brave Boxing Club, and I've had fighters on all of my cards that I coached myself and cornered and worked that. So that's a unique and special thing for me. With the fighters, what's cool about it is I can control the matchups and I can control how who they're going to be fighting and the time in which they're going to be fighting on the card. That just gives me a lot of cool options. But the goal was to help develop them and give them the right kinds of fights that'll help make them better fighters overall. So it's not about giving them super easy fights or fights that are ridiculously hard, but ones that are properly matched. If you've ever been to a show of mine, you'll be surprised by just how good all the fights look, regardless of the skill level of the fighters. We're trying to put something together that looks entertaining, that looks exciting, and will get the best out of each fighter that's out there. So that's an important thing for me.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so then I got to ask you, how did you end up opening a boxing gym?
Sure. Yeah. So I've basically been doing various kinds of coaching for 15 years or so. But boxing was far more recent for me. It became an obsession of mine, and I was just shocked by just how different it was than my preconception, how I expected it to go. And essentially what happened was, as I was learning to box, I was bringing my friends along and we were working together, and I would just sit and watch the pros that were in the gym and see how they were working. And I would try to imitate it, and I would do it badly. And I would try to maybe explain what I heard other people say to my friends. And that whole process of trying to get better myself in the academic standpoint, and then being able to take what I learned and put it on other people that haven't boxed before, gave me a unique sort of background and attempt to learn how to explain it to others. So the things that I talk about when it comes to boxing the fights and the way in which I studied it can help me be able to talk about it differently than other people. Being good at boxing doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to coach it and explain it well. And so for me, being able to approach it from a different aspect and angle is important. So a lot of what I focus on is about positioning, footwork, talking about leverage, talking about how to generate power from different parts of the body in order to deliver the punch. There's a lot of things I talk about, and I did a lot of research on how the fighters of the past did it and where their source of strength was and where their source of endurance was. So I really try to go back to the source and really look at things from the original standpoint of how boxing was formed and try to bring people from there. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I think you did 3 events so far, right? Correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So how is how'd the first one go to that now the third one? Because I'm
Oh
sure every
goodness.
time.
Every card is different. The way you got to think about it is your first event ever. You don't know what you don't know, right? You're learning to work with a lot of different people just to bring an event together. You know, that first event we had 8 fights, which means that I had to deal with 16 fighters plus their teams, plus the commission who basically regulates the fights. Not to mention I have to work with the venue, and that was my first time with that venue over at Southern Junction, and then having to bring all the other vendors, and then not to mention sell tickets, make sure that I can get everyone in the door, make sure that they can find their seat, and actually go through the logistics of actually running the card from beginning to end. Basically, everything had to be put together from scratch. There was no template or anything. Exhausting. One of the hardest things I've ever done for sure. But the actual quality of the event was very high. Hiccups here or there, but in terms of what needed to happen, it definitely did. And, you know, it was a really great event, and I was incredibly proud of it. You look at the second event, that was all about refining, cleaning up the things that didn't go well the first time while still trying to maintain the same quality of in terms of the fights and quality in terms of who was able to come and fight on the card. And overall, it was a much cleaner and much more simple event, and I thought it went very well. It didn't kill me nearly the same way that the first one did. But then the third one, you know, I made a lot of drastic changes in terms of the people that I was working with, the types of fighters that I was working with, and then as well the venue, going to a bigger and more expensive and more elaborate venue in a part of town, Deep Ellum, which is closer to downtown. That's far more crowded. There was a lot of new logistical things that I had to worry about. And, you know, overall, the event went off without too much of a hitch. It was a very clean event from the customer's perspective, and I heard a lot of positive things about it. But again, I got to go back to the drawing board and clean up all the things on the back end just to make it a more seamless experience, and will give me more headroom to focus on other things for the future. So it's always this process of, you know, adding new things and then refining it, adding and refining it. You know, it's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of creativity and planning to do something like this, but seeing the end result in terms of just the cheers and the oohs and ahs is just, you know, very satisfying for me.
Yeah, for sure. And then what about do you have fighters signed right now to you?
I will in the future. We're in talks with several different fighters across Dallas, and then people from other states and then other countries as well that we're working on deals with. So they'll probably have all of that sewn away within like the next 3 to 4 months. A lot of what boxing is about connections and about having a reputation and having people just sort of learn what you're about and what your goals are and becoming that sort of that fixture. So with every event, the goal is to expand the number of people that I know and the people that know me and have them better understand sort of how I work and what I'm looking to do. So with the first one, no one knows you. And in the future, more people will be able to better understand sort of how I operate and what I'm looking to do for the promotion and for the sport of boxing, you know.
For sure. I know you just had your event. It was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Are you already planning on the next one?
for sure. So Victory 4, we're really targeting for the end of August. The target date for that will be the 30th. And then I'm looking to do another event at the very end of November. I think I'm targeting the 29th for that. And so it's just about working out all the details with the venue and then starting to put together all of the other aspects that are required to just make the event go at the very beginning of it all. But the goal is to turn around events around every 3 to 4 months. So that way people have a regular schedule that they can set their clock to. The fighters have an expectation about when they'll be fighting. And then it also makes it easier for the sponsors to have a good idea about where they can fit in. And then the customers don't forget about us as well. So it's
Yeah.
about being stable there.
Yeah, no, for sure. That makes sense. What advice would you give somebody trying to start their own promotion?
Oh goodness, it's much harder than you think it would be.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just that with a lot of other jobs, you can just go and advertise when you need certain kinds of help, and so just being plugged into what's required to really make it work and operate. There's not really a book out there that can explain all of it to you. A lot of it is other people being willing to help you out and explain what needs to be done. Making sure that you already have the reputation in place. In general, it's a relationship business, and the more relationships you have, the more experience you have, the more money you have. All these things make a big difference, but it's not just solely a money thing, because you can quickly part with your money in this kind of business. So it's about knowing when and where to really put your resources, and none of it's exactly obvious or simple.
Yeah, no, for sure. When it comes to signing fighters in the future, like what are you going to be looking for?
Sure. So when we talk about signing fighters, that means a lot of things to different people. For me, it's just a contractual relationship stating that this fighter is someone that I'm going to be investing in over the long term, with the expectation that they're going to grow in popularity, they're going to be able to get X number of fights, and that I'm going to be able to, in turn, grow my brand and make money off of their name and likeness while we're working together. I see it as a great opportunity to basically attach resources to specific people that I think can really help grow the business and make it really just box office. That's important. And so there's a lot of different considerations that have to be made when you're looking at that. For example, their willingness to sell tickets. I know plenty of fighters that want to really focus only on the fighting side of the business, and that's important. And I don't want to take that away from them. But it's much harder to sign a fighter, let's say if they're a 10-round fighter, but they don't sell enough tickets to cover, let's say, their expenses plus the cost of their opponent and everything that goes into that, including the travel, including the purse, including any kind of medical issues that may arise from that. It can get expensive the more advanced they are. And so it's about finding just that sweet spot between their abilities currently, the potential upside that they have, and then all the other things that go into just really making a promotion work. Because unfortunately, it's more than just about your skill level. It's about having an audience and being able to connect with that audience.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I don't know if some fighters might not know that yet. Still,
Well, it's not obvious,
yeah,
but the difference is anyone can go fight someone in their backyard and be the
yeah,
best at it. But in order to even put on one fight, I basically have to have at least 3 or 4 others being
yeah,
made as well, which means I already have to have already, found a venue, already would have had to, contract all this work with all these other vendors. There's quite a lot that goes into it. And so it's never as simple as just fighting. They talk about the politics of boxing, and it's not underrated. It really is that much that goes into being able to put on even a simple fight. And so it's never as simple as people want it to be, and it's hard to really see all of it because it's not exactly out there in the open to be understood. And
yeah,
the deeper you go into it, the more you can really see. And it's fascinating, but it's not for everyone.
for sure. What do you think about influencer boxing?
I see it as a very positive thing, to be honest. If you think about it, these guys aren't particularly great, but they're not bad. I mean, if you spend your time learning how to box and dedicating yourself to it, you're going to learn it just like anything else. And some of these guys fight with a lot of skill and a lot of grit and desire, and they're showmen. They already have a audience, which is great. It makes it much easier for the promotion to put it on and sell tickets and make sure that people want to follow up. And they're taking on challenges that are appropriate to where they're at and where they're going. So I don't see a big issue with it. It would be different, let's say, if they were taking on challenges that were putting them in, like, let's say, like a WBC ranking, and they were just being used to just pad other people's records. That'd be different.
Yeah.
But they're fighting guys that are just like them, and that's fun. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We want to know these things, right? And at the end of the day, as long as they're willing to put themselves on the line like that and train and, conduct themselves appropriately, I don't see a problem with it at all. Boxing's an entertainment sport. And if you have an audience and there are people that want to see you go fight some other guy, why not?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the other thing that people don't realize is like these influencers, just take Jake Paul for example. Like obviously at this point if people aren't giving him respect, it's kind of weird.
Well, Jake Paul would beat most people in the world at fighting, right? He's actually getting pretty decent.
Yeah.
At the stage in his career, you go and look at a lot of other fighters. They're not getting that kind of attention until they're several more fights into their career. So what's happening with him is he's just taking gradually more reasonable and harder fights the longer he's been at it. He fights a basketball player, fights an MMA fighter that doesn't really do a whole lot of striking, that's older in age. He's just been making strategic moves, but I'm not too mad at it. I mean, he's promoting the sport. Honestly, he's a really good promoter, putting, women's boxing on the map. I don't have a lot of negative things to say about him as a person. He's just doing what the market demands of him. And let's be honest, boxing as a sport and as a product is being introduced to a whole lot of new people because of him. So I don't know. I think he's doing a decent job.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's why, going back to what I was going to say was, basically like he has the resources, obviously, because he's already a millionaire.
Yeah.
It's like people don't understand that, there's a lot of boxers out there that probably would be really good or even better, but they don't have the, the resources to, fund their training and go to
for sure
X, Y, and Z camp to go train. So that's why I don't think anyone, it's kind of weird because I never see that narrative being put out more, and I feel like it's like a no-brainer. Like it's like there's a lot of guys that could be like really good, but they just don't have funding.
Sure. Well, I totally see what you're saying, but then there's the other aspect of it as well. How many people would really want to fight if they had Jake Paul's kind of money and popularity?
Yeah, true.
It's the other half of it as well. I mean, he's a big guy. He's athletic. He has his training facility out there in Puerto Rico, and he's hiring the people that are needed to help take him to that next level. He's still taking the punches all the same.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, he's conducting himself with, a certain amount of integrity and, seriousness that's becoming of a fighter. And, I'm not going to say he's become a world champion or anything, but he's getting good. He's not bad.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I've seen worse out there in the world for sure.
Yeah. All right. You ready for some fun questions?
Sure.
All right. What about what like fights are you looking forward to this year? And then give me like a fight that you want to see either like this year or like next year that hasn't been made yet.
Sure. So when you look at fights that really excite me, I like all kinds of different kinds of matchups. One of my favorite fighters out there is Tim Tszyu. He's someone that I really like how he conducts himself and the way in which he approaches fights in terms of the volume of fights he takes and the types of people he goes against. Honestly, there's a lot of positive things I can say about him. I'd love to see him, fight the rest of guys at 154. I think there's a lot of meat left on the plate for him to take on. Honestly, seeing him go against Spence in the future, I think would be pretty exciting. Love to see him with a rematch against Fandor or something like that. See if he can maybe take Murtazalazov again.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw
try to get that loss back.
I actually got announced yesterday that he's going to rematch Fandor.
Oh, really? That's great. Okay, well, that's a good start then for sure. I want to see him run that back again. That was great. That Conor Benn fight against Chris Eubank Jr. Fight that happened last weekend was amazing. I was just amazed by just the quality of that fight, how much pride they fought with. I got chills when we saw Chris Eubank Sr. step out of the car. It was a special day.
Yeah.
Seeing them fight again, honestly, I wouldn't want to see that again because I felt it took so much out of both guys,
Right.
and I was just happy that it happened, and I'm ready to see both guys move on and go do other things. But they're probably going to fight
Yeah.
again, so that'll be interesting.
That's how I felt too. I was like, I don't really need to see another. Like, I thought it was good enough that we don't need another one.
That
And
was such a good fight. I'm good. All right,
yeah,
and just go do other things.
and I honestly,
Uh,
I'm honestly, I want to see what Connor Ben could do against like top either super welterweights or
yeah,
if he could still go to welterweight.
yeah, I could see it for sure. I really like some of the new guys that we have over at heavyweight right now. What's his name? Moses. I think he's a pretty interesting guy.
Yeah,
Love to see what he's going to do in the future. Maybe he'll step up. Was it Caballal, that guy that knocked out? I think it was Zhang he knocked out, right? If I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
That guy's pretty entertaining. I just want to see the heavyweight division come back to where it should be. You
yeah,
know, the top of the sport becoming the premier weight division that runs it and makes it great. I think that's an integral part to just really make the sport as great as it could be and should be. Heavyweight boxing slower, it's more power based, it's easier to see and watch and understand, especially for the casual.
hmm
You know, if you remember that Tyson Fury versus Wilder fight, that trilogy was really important to bringing a whole lot of new people into the sport, especially that third fight was just epic.
hmm
I think more things like that are really important to making the sport as great as it could be and should be. So, you know, anything with the heavyweight division, big moves are along that line, will be important. And getting those new guys moving and ready to go is important.
for sure. Um, I guess what would be like what's like a big arena like you would want to do a fight at?
Uh, like the Comerica Center here in Dallas, Texas, would be a big one for me that I'd want to do in the future. You know, holds a lot of seats. The PFL has done events there, and I went to them, and I was just amazed by how good everything looked there. That's ahead of where I'm at for now, but you know, that's a goal for the future, and
Right.
I'd love to do that. So that'd
Yeah,
be
for
pretty
sure.
great.
I know we talked about influencer boxing. So would you ever put any influencers on your card?
I don't see why not. I mean, they have a built-in audience. People
Yeah,
want to come see them fight. That's
yeah,
important enough for me, right? I gotta give the customers what they want, and at the end of the day, getting young fighters and young customers in the door is important,
yeah, for sure.
right? You introduce them to one of those kinds of fights, an influencer fight, and that's cool. And then that sells tickets, and those audience members that are now in the ticket stands, they can now see maybe other kinds of fights that are out there with higher level fighters or a different kind of matchup with maybe those guys couldn't do,
For sure.
right? That's why I try to have so much diversity in terms of the kinds of matchups that I have on the card, just in order to give someone a little bit of everything. So that way you can see, you know, fighters where one guy's really aggressive and one guy's maybe on the back foot, counter punching, two guys that are going at each other and not moving in the middle of the ring, fights that are back and forth, and maybe where it's going to be one way early and then another way late. You know, there's all kinds of different ways you can match it up. And it's important to make sure that I try to think about entertainment being the top level of it for the customer. So, you know, maybe we can introduce and make new boxing fans along the way.
For sure. All right. Well, Cyrus, I appreciate you coming on and can you let the followers know could you let the listeners know where to follow you at?
Sure, absolutely. So again, my name is Cyrus Tidwell. You can follow me over on Instagram or on YouTube or on Facebook at a Victory Boxing League. Very easy to find us. Our logo is red, so not hard to find by any means. We're going to be putting on more fights this year, probably April 30th, and then August 30th, and then November 29th. It'll be a great time. Come watch us, come follow us, and we're going to make sure we put on the best product possible. Appreciate you.